What's up, guys? This is Trevor the Great here again from Way of the Swan with another battle report for you guys. I'm sorry if I sound a little weird. I have a bit of a cold right now, so my throat's a little seized up, but hopefully I can speak enough to get this battle report over to you. This is the final round of the hardcore I ran recently. If you've seen my previous battle report, you will have watched the semifinals with the same Retribution player in it. So I am a press ganger for those who don't know, and I run tournaments in the New England meta quite often. So this is one that I ran recently. It was a hardcore event that used the Specialists variant from Steamroller, not something that's usually used in hardcore. But because hardcore is a one-list format, it sometimes forces players into bad matchups if they hit something their list can't really deal with, and Specialized helps to mitigate that and hopefully make the game a little bit more balanced and you know, make things more fun for everybody. So if the Issyriah list in this list is a little bit different than the one in the last battle report, I think it is one of the jacks is different. That would be why. So anyway, like I said, we have Retribution of Issyriah versus Crix. The Retribution player is bringing Issyriah, the Symbol of Dawn. His list is a Banshee and Discordia. Discordia in the previous battle report was swapped out for a Phoenix to deal with the walls from Runes of War. But in this case, Discordia's spray is going to be very, very useful against all those infantry. So she's in the list to shoot things a lot, and it's great. There is also 2 units of Stormfall Archers, a unit of Mage Hunter Strike Force with their unit attachment, the Mage Hunter Commander, 2 Mage Hunter Assassins, an Arcanist, and a maxed unit of Dawn Guard Sentinels with their unit attachment. I talked about this list in the last battle report, so if you want to you know, hear most of my thoughts on it, you can watch that one, which you totally should. But just in general, this list is, you know, a good 1-2 punch. It threatens both at ranged and in melee. The Strike Force and Stormfall Archers can get out really early, and with Issyriah's feet do a lot of damage from shooting, force your opponent into you so that battle group and the Dawn Guard Sentinels can get a lot of work done. Or even they can also alpha pretty well if Issyriah Crusaders calls to make their threat range, you know, 12 inches just about, which is pretty significant. So on the other side of the table we have Goreshade3, the Lord of Ruin. He is running Deathjack and a Night Wretch in his battle group. He also has an attached Scarlock Thrall as well, which you should always have in a Crix list for about 90% of the Crix casters. Scarlocks are way too good to leave at home. There is a maximum unit of MkII Thralls with a Necrosurgeon, so that will be able to recur that unit of MkII Thralls and also turn the Nis Hunters that are also in this list into MkII Thralls when they die. So, like I said, there are Nis Hunters in there, as well as a maximum unit of Soul Hunters and Derek Wrath, and the Wither Shadow Combine. That's the other thing in the list. So overall, very good, very solid list. These Hunters are actually a pretty cool choice with Goreshade3 because he can help their accuracy at range by making things stationary with his sword or with his feet. And he has Scything Touch and Occultation to either make them hit harder in melee or protect them against the enemy ranged attacks. So that's pretty solid. That's a pretty solid choice. And also, Nis Hunters are usually just a good all-around unit. So very, very solid. The one thing that the Crix player needs to worry about is that they are not fearless, and the Deathjack causes abomination to everybody. So if the Deathjack gets too close to those Nis Hunters, things might go downhill for the Crix player pretty quickly. Anyway, this, as I said before, is a hardcore game, so hardcore only uses one scenario. It's the deathmatch scenario. It's very centralized. There's a 12-inch circular zone in the very center of the board. There are no CPs scored, nothing like that, but if you control the zone, so that's if you have a model in it, if it's a unit there are some more restrictions, and no enemy models, then your opponent's Warcaster takes 5 damage and cannot heal or transfer damage for 1 round. If you dominate the zone instead of controlling it, their caster takes an additional 2 damage for a total of 7. So if you are losing on attrition and get pushed out of the zone, you can find yourself losing your caster very quickly to 2 or 3 turns of controlling. You also score pressure points, which will help in tiebreakers. If the game does go to time, there is a master round clock going in this, but that usually doesn't come into play. The pressure points are sort of a secondary thing. So, it being hardcore, the players are going to use a 7-minute time turn format. There's no extensions because extensions aren't hardcore enough. But because this was the final round, and there's a little bit riding on it, the players asked me to come in, just like last round, and run the clock for them. So anytime there was a question or something like that, we could switch the clock over, and so everything was fair and balanced. That meant that, although I didn't play this game, I did get to watch most of it, which means that I have a little bit of insight into what was going on, although I wasn't actually playing the game, so I can't really get into my opponent's heads too far. But, that's what's going on. I hope you guys enjoy the battle report. Alrighty, here we are into the game. I think I did miss deployment when I was recording this game, so unfortunately I can't really get into deployment. But as you can see, Issyriah's over on the left there, Goreshade's on the right, and everything's just running up turn 1. There's admonition going down on Discordia. That's going to make it very hard to kill that Warjack in melee, which means Discordia can just duck out of melee repeatedly and continue to spray with that spray. Inviolable Resolve I'm sorry, is going down onto the Banshee to make it a little bit more resilient. And everything's just running up. You can see the 2 Mage Hunter Assassins over there, up towards the top of the screen. The Goreshade player ran his Arc Node out to try to get within 5 inches of one of them, and unfortunately wasn't able to get quite close enough to get a Siphon Bolt off and take one of those out, because with Issyriah's feat and Crusader's Call, those Assassins are incredibly dangerous, with a 16-inch threat, if I remember correctly, and Weapon Masters with Decapitation, so doubling damage and no tough rolls. Pretty solid. Here's everything running up for the Crix player. The Soul Hunters are running up to jam into those Strike Force and lessen the amount of shooting that the Retribution player is going to get off early. The MkII Thrall is running up into the middle, and the Machine Wraith running up towards the top. Unfortunately, those Nis Hunters are deployed on the same side as the Deathjack, who previously cast Infernal Machine on himself and walked up. So they're going to have to be very careful where they get placed. If they get within 3 inches of the Deathjack, they're going to have to take a command check, and having them flee this early could be really bad. So we have the Wither Shadow Combine going. Their Darkfire. I'm sorry, these are still the Nis Hunters. The Nis Hunters are shooting at several of the MkII Thralls. This allows Goreshade to Mockery them back to life, because Mockery is just replacing them to play, but you still get a corpse into the Necrosurgeon. So what the Goreshade player is doing here is he's fueling up his Necrosurgeon before he needs to activate, so his opponent can't really deny him too many corpses. And then he also was able to get one of those MkII Thralls out by chaining Mockery's life and engage one of the Mage Hunter Strike Force. So, Discordia taking a spray at one of the Nis Hunters. It is a Retribution Jack, so it is a magic weapon, so it's able to kill the Machine Wraith, but isn't able to get on Deathjack. So no damage to Deathjack there, although Deathjack's going to have a tough time dealing with Discordia with admonition on her. The Dawnguard Sentinel's moving up, just taking a couple swings in that Soul Hunter, that close Soul Hunter. Issyriah did go and feated this turn, so that's going to mean that all of these attacks are going to have a very, very high chance of hitting and dealing damage. What the Retribution player is going to do is try to kill as many of Goreshade's models as he can on this turn. There is Occultation on those Soul Hunters, which I forgot to mention, because the Scarlock Thrall cast it. So they're going to be a little bit difficult for the Mage Hunter Strike Force to kill. But what the Retribution player is doing is he's taking out the models within 3 of that Necrosurgeon. So the Necrosurgeon isn't going to be able to sack Pawn when the Strike Force shoot at her. And I think they are able to kill just enough models so that they can get a shot into the Necrosurgeon and kill her. That effective Signs Importance rolling is making things a lot easier for the Retribution player, and he can reliably expect those 6s or 7s to hit and damage with those Rat 6 Power 10 guns. Also a couple points dealt to Deathjack, I think, with a couple shots. The Banshee taking a momentum shot into Daragrath, who's hiding behind that house there, slamming him into the house. I'm sorry, knocking him down and boosting damage and killing him, so he's unhorsed and just on his normal little horse there, or on foot now. Stormfall Archer's going, taking lots of shots. There are a ton of AoEs going out this game, so I have my templates out, and we're trying to see where it's going. killing a couple of the Nis Hunters, and then a couple brutal damage shots going into Deathjack as well, just to try to deal damage to him. The True Strike Force moving up to swing at the Arc Node up at the top there, and unfortunately they both miss, even with Issyriah's feet. So that was pretty unlucky, but 8s are not something you can really rely on too hard. So overall, a huge turn for the Issyriah player. The Necrosurgeon is down, which means those MkII Thralls are restricted to a finite number at this point. Goreshade hopping the wall to make sure he's not killboxing himself, which could be bad. And upkeeping Infernal Machine. Occultation got dropped though because the Soul Hunters are close enough that it's not going to make a huge difference. The remaining MkII Thralls are moving up and taking some swings, killing 1 Sentinel, I believe, and 1 Strike Force member. The Wither Shadow Combine moving up and trying to take a couple Darkfire shots. The Wither Shadow Combine is a bit of an enigma because Edmonia really wants to be up close and personal, but the unit, while being relatively safe with stealth and armor 16, is mostly a support unit between puppet strings and whatever Edmonia's ability to give free upkeeps is, which means that the unit, it can do a lot of different things, but it really wants to play a midline game. Playing it way up in the front could be a little bit dangerous. You don't really want to lose those buffs. So the Soul Hunters gaining Incorporeal from activated in Daragrath's command. So one of them charging straight through those Strike Force who do not have magical weapons, and getting into the Sentinel unit leader. So the officer's way back in the back there, so he's safe, giving the unit vengeance. But 2 of the Sentinels have been taken out so far. And then the rest of the unit just killing a bunch of the Strike Force and light capping away to try to mitigate the counter-strike, because that rough terrain is going to hinder those Retribution models pretty hard. Not the Strike Force, obviously, but the Sentinels and the Battle Group. Deathjack moving up, just killing some more dudes. Discordia, I don't think, had to Admonition away. And that is all she wrote for Goreshade. So we're over to Retribution. Some vengeance happening. Killing off one of the Soul Hunters. And then 3 focus looks like it getting allocated to Discordia. Issyriah upkeeping all of her spells and camping 3. 3 focus makes the Goreshade assassination run a little bit difficult because while she can Arcane Vortex, which will take her camp down, which is basically the same thing as Goreshade hitting her with Siphon Bolts, the Siphon Bolt isn't actually going to do any damage. So she gets 3 free shots from Goreshade before any damage is dealt, and Goreshade isn't going to get the extra focus from that. So it's very difficult to kill Issyriah with spells, basically, is the moral of the story. This is some Strike Force shooting, I believe, taking out Daragrath. And a couple more Stormfall shots into Deathjack to beat him up. I think the plan is for Discordia to move up and ace Deathjack. Unfortunately, I think Deathjack got a little too close. Deathjack actually getting taken out by the Stormfall Archers, along with the damage that he took last turn from Issyriah's feet, the Strike Force with their Jack Hunter. Unfortunately, those Combine were a little too close together, all up in the center there, so Discordia was able to get a spray that hit all of them, and with 3 focus was able to boost and kill all 3. So that is a huge deal for the Goreshade player. The Wither Shadow Combine are a very, very powerful unit. Between the free upkeeps for Scything Touch or Occultation for Goreshade, or the just Dark Firing and shooting, and especially Puppet Master. So all of those things are gone now because Discordia was able to get that really clutch spray out. And then the Sentinels wiping out a couple more of those Soul Hunters, but most of them being pretty resilient with that Defense 14. Being forced to roll 7s to hit makes things a little bit dicey when you're trying to take those models out. So here are the Nis Hunters coming through. They've only lost 3, it looks like, so far from the Stormfall Archers, so they are forced to be reckoned with. And with a lot of those Dawnguard Sentinels not in defensive line, they are able to take a significant number of them out with their bow shots. Just going back into some Stormfall Archer shots. Isn't able to get line of sight past the Forest and Discordia, so it just ends up taking out more Dawnguard Sentinels.
So I think this MkII Thrall killing a Strike Force member. Those MkII Thralls have been pretty good at killing Defense 14 models this game. Needing 9s to hit, doesn't really matter. I think the Goreshade player's original plan in this turn was to use Goreshade to charge into Discordia. Unfortunately, Discordia still has the admonition on her. You can see a little token back behind her. And the Goreshade player, I think, forgot about that initially. Now, there is a Stitch Thrall right next to Discordia. And Goreshade originally considers charging and decides not to. Unfortunately, this is a pretty big deal. If the Stitch Thrall that was there from the Necrosurgeon unit could have been used to feat, one of the Stitch Thralls get feated and knocks and stationaries. It looks like 1 Strike Force member and 2 Sentinels. But if the other one ended up moving away and taking a free strike for some reason, I think it's maybe to clear Discordia out from engagement, but I don't think that really mattered. If the Goreshade player had simply feated on that model, then Discordia would have been stationary and unable to advance from admonition, so Goreshade could have charged Discordia and had a pretty good shot at taking her out. Now, that meant that Goreshade might have been in danger of the Banshee, but at least Goreshade was pretty much back up on attrition. It would have been just about even. And him in that wreck marker in cover makes it very difficult for the Stormfall Archers to hit him. So it would have been an interesting game. But unfortunately, hardcore having 7-minute time turns, players don't always think about all the options. So that's what I thought the Goreshade player was going to do when I was watching the game. It did not turn out that way. And as it stands, basically, Issyriah gets to shoot essentially her whole army into Goreshade. So Discordia taking a shot. The Banshee, I think, took a shot. The Scarlet Thrall did swap Occultation on the Goreshade, so he is pretty safe from a lot of those long-range shooting attacks. 1 Dawnguard Sentinel getting in there, needing a 7 to hit, and I think he missed. And then the Stormfall Archers, instead of shooting into stealthy Goreshade, decided to take out as many Nis Hunters as possible. So right now, the Goreshade player has taken so many casualties, this basically turns into a mop-up operation. I think if he was able to take out Discordia and survive the next turn, he had a pretty good shot at killing the Banshee, perhaps, or maybe even threatening Issyriah. Issyriah, at this point, because she is so far up on attrition, she ended up taking the 5 damage from a kill box and ran towards the edge of the board, so she wasn't able to be threatened by Goreshade's assassination run. Those Mage Hunter assassins did finally manage to take out the Bonejack Arc Node up at the top, which meant that Goreshade doesn't really have an Arc Node in order to deal with Issyriah and get spells on her, although Arcane Vortex makes her pretty safe from that. At the end of that turn, Goreshade is a Warcaster, so he doesn't contest. So at the end of that turn, the Issyriah player controls the zone and is able to deal 5 additional damage to Goreshade. So he's not looking too good right now, and all the Issyriah player needs to do is stay alive in order to win this game. So he's dropping Occultation, allowing the Scarlock to move into the zone and recast it. The Soul Hunters taking swings, killing an Arcanist. That Soul Hunter towards the left-hand side of the screen there has 3 souls on him, which is enormous. Soul Hunters very rarely get that many souls, but defense 14 and that, and armor 15, and just the amount of mobility that this unit has makes it very difficult for Retribution to deal with them, especially with only Rat 6 guns and with the Dawnguard Sentinels looking pretty devastated. So the Scarlet Thrall and one of the Soul Hunters is in the zone, so Goreshade isn't going to take an additional 5 damage this turn, but he needs to survive those 2 Warjacks in order to have a shot at this game. Here is the Nis Hunters advancing, I think, taking some swings into the Mage Hunter's Assassin. One of them in the back arc hitting and killing her, and then one swing into Discordia, not doing anything. Just token attacks at this point. It's not going to make a huge difference. The Nis Hunters don't have the numbers to take out a Retribution Heavy at this point. So he had a little bit of a question here. Goreshade declared a ride-by attack and attempted to make his initial attack and then complete his ride-by and by attacks. Unfortunately, that's not really how ride-by attack works. You have to complete your entire combat action in the interrupt between your 2 movement segments, which means that Goreshade was only able to kill 1 Dawnguard Sentinel and then moved up. into the zone next to the Banshee there. Now, the Goreshade player here is very new at playing Goreshade. He is a very experienced Krix player, but doesn't use normal cavalry that often, because Krix, until recently, has not had access to it. So some of those cavalry rules, which are probably some of the most complex in the game, are a little bit new to him. So the Stormfall Archers are taking out the Scarlock Thrall. 3 focus in the Banshee. He's swinging at the Soul Hunter to try to kill him, and then swinging to Goreshade, dealing more damage, and then controlling the zone for an additional 5 damage, and that finishes Goreshade off. So that means that another game has gone to Retribution of Issyriah, as well as the entire tournament. So very, very good job to this Issyriah player. Issyriah is not normally people's first choice for hardcore. People normally take something like Vyros 2, somebody who's very survivable and tanky, and doesn't take quite as long to activate. Issyriah tends to make a lot of attacks, especially during her feat turn. So, pretty ballsy move, taking Issyriah as your caster in a hardcore event, but congratulations to the Issyriah player, and stay tuned for more battle reports. I did just record a whole bunch of games, so hopefully I'll have some more of those out to you, as well as I have another tournament coming up later in January, and I'll hopefully record a couple games from there so we can get some other factions onto the show. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Do all that crazy stuff, and have a good day.